So a pleasant good morning to each of you. I would like to especially welcome all our students and we have teachers and school counselors attending as well. A very special welcome to you. And to our facilitator, Mr. Daren, Dhoray, CyberSafeTT. A special welcome to religious sisters who are present, our congregation, Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother, and members and staff of the Franciscan Institute. Right, we thank you again for joining yet another interesting session. And for our anti-human trafficking program we have in store at the Franciscan Institute. So with all things being Franciscan, we always start with a prayer. So I'll just say a brief prayer at this time. Prayer for online workshops. This was created by Sister Michael Louise from the Franciscan Institute in St. Lucia. Heavenly Father, for another day of opportunities, we thank you. Bless our projects for this day. Inspire our facilitator, Mr. Daren Dhoray, that what he imparts to us, each one of us, may be able to share this knowledge with our encounters. Protect our young and vulnerable brothers and sisters in our society, especially from the threat of human trafficking. May St. Francis of Assisi and St. Thomas Aquinas pray for all our students and teachers. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
If you want me to go back to any of the slides that that would have been shared before, feel free to let me know. I'm going to stop the share and actually look at the chat to see what sort of, actually I'll leave the share up. Let me see if I can pull up the chat here to see what times you all went to sleep last night, right? 10:30, 11 o'clock, 10 p.m., right? 2 a.m. I like that we have people being very honest. 4 a.m., 2 a.m. That's great. So I mean, if we were to continue with that on a regular basis, then we might probably be losing some sleep, right? 3 a.m. and so on and so forth. Yeah, I mean, I'm really happy that you shared that correct time, 3:30 a.m. Wow, we have some very early risers, right? This is not what time you woke up, right? This is what time you went to sleep. So yeah, definitely, it's something that you have to be very well aware of, and I'm happy that you responded in that way. Yes, so yes, you can try reading a book or magazine. I know it's really hard to come by sometimes, but that's something that we would have done. Play football. Well, I said, like, when we actually get the opportunity to go out, but you might be able to practice some keep-ups by yourself on your own. So yes, what we can do, Annalise, I'm not too sure if you found any questions in the chat. I am noticing that there are quite a lot of responses there. So if there are any particular questions from the chat that we need to address, please let me know. Or if there's anyone that would like to ask a question now, you can type it out in the chat and we'll look to address those.
Okay, sure, Daren. And also we have disabled the ability to allow persons to unmute themselves and ask questions as well. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Great. And so someone says that they get bored pretty easily, and that's really interesting because it's not necessarily a sign of internet addiction, but it is a sign of actually what we are, and I guess, accustomed to. We are now accustomed to constant content and constant communication on a regular basis, and therefore, yes, you might get bored because what you're doing is not stimulating you. I would have mentioned that in a slide before. You have to actually spend a lot more time doing something on the internet to get that stimulation and to feel satisfied. What I would recommend, though, therefore, is that you find other challenges, find other games that you can actually play, or even different types of content. So sometimes we might be looking at Netflix, for example, and it might be comedies or dramas and so on. Try looking at something that might stimulate the brain. There are so many different types of content there that you can actually look at, and definitely it's something that you can maybe try to assist yourself with. I see.
Hey, Daren.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Alicia. I am a parent of 3 children, soon to be, well, one going to be 12 and needs to be eldest is going to be 16 soon. And I found that this is really an excellent presentation, so much so that I am thinking of using this topic as the next my next sort of safety topic in my organization, because I really think it's excellent. You know, it's something that we overlook. And I'm wondering if it is that you know, with your level of expertise are available for presentations to other groups, just out of curiosity, how do you go about it? So I could probably just talk to Annalise privately on that. But I have a concern about the YouTubing and YouTubers, right? And the dangers associated with YouTube. Um, and so much so that we have a rule in our household that you can't go on YouTube without permission, right? Because of the obvious dangers. I don't know if you could probably elaborate a little bit more on that so the young people can really understand how easy it is to get distracted and to get into the wrong sort of content viewing.
Gotcha. So yeah, but thanks to that, and definitely cyber safety schools during the July-August period. Actually, we are quite subscribed as well. You know, we do have a lot of sessions. So yes, feel free. You can visit CyberSafeTT, or I'm just gonna put my email in the chat. You can send me an email, and we can look at getting that session on for you. With respect to content on YouTube, so my first thing is, let's not necessarily focus on YouTube, because the same type of content is going to be available just on Google, right? So you might block YouTube or prevent use of YouTube, but content on that particular platform is not actually as bad as the kind of content that you can get right off Google. Yeah. So whilst we might be able to use that as a scenario to help cultivate good browsing etiquette and good browsing behavior, I don't want you to think that YouTube alone, and I don't think that you do, but just highlighting that YouTube alone is not the bad guy. There are content filtering tools that you can use on YouTube, to restrict certain content, but I've seen that actually come to have a negative impact when it comes to schooling. So when you actually upload a video on YouTube, let's just say you're uploading a video on learning to do math or science. If the YouTube video is not flagged specifically made for kids, then it could also be flagged as adult content, even though there's absolutely no adult content in it. And I've had instances where schools who use Google Suite or Google Classroom and sharing videos on YouTube, and their students weren't able to get it because they said that they were a kid and they were under the age of 13 and so on. So the parental controls could work, but it could also hinder you from real world activities. So yes, YouTube, I think a lot of parents believe that it does have a lot of bad content, but I would safely say that you can actually get a lot of worse content outside there. So there are other things that you can do. I firmly believe in education. I really don't believe in restriction. I more believe in education. Let's explain to the youths why it's not good to look at this type of content and look at this type of information and inappropriate stuff, and inculcate that from a very, very young age. Look, even Twitter, as innocent as it might seem, there are a whole different sets of content going on Twitter that you would be really, really amazed at, right? And we do have so many popular social media applications as well, TikTok being one of the more popular ones, and we do have a lot of inappropriate content being shared on that platform as well. So yes, there are quite a few apps that might fall prey, and then it's really about, I guess, inculcating a good online etiquette and inculcating those values in, these young ones who they have, a lot of power, because, we are giving them a lot of responsibility by letting them, use the internet for so many good things. So yes, I mean, it's a double-edged sword there, really, with respect to, that conversation on YouTube.
Thanks so much for adding that, Daren. I'm also seeing on the chat that there are a few comments that students, they don't only use YouTube, but they also use other platforms like Twitch, TikTok, gaming platform like Battle Royale. And someone would like to know what university did you go to? And can you give the person advice on how that person can start the program? And I'm also seeing 3 hands up: Luke, Levine, Marcel, and Chantal. Thank you.
Okay. So I did my Bachelor's of Science degree in Computer Science and Management at the University of the West Indies. I also did my Master's in Creative Design and Entrepreneurship, also at the University of the West Indies. But I'm also currently doing a certificate in digital transformation at Stanford University. So yes, even in my, very gray-beard age, I am still learning. It's something that, you'll have to continue doing as you go along in life. There are many programs that you can apply to at UWI that will get you on this path of, becoming, another digital anthropologist like myself, or studying the internet. And there are also many different online programs and courses that you can do there as well. And yes, so the thing is, there are so many different platforms that kids engage in. Fortnite, Battle Royale, those are all gaming platforms. However, they all have, and this is what I want you all to understand, they all have the ability to chat and communicate with, players throughout the world. Now, at no point in time we really know whether or not the person that we're speaking to is indeed someone that might be our age or your age or older. And really and truly, you have to be very wary as to what type of information you share with them. And you might actually share that information on one particular platform, and that person might search you up and find you on social media and then connect with you there, and you might not even know that it's the same person, because when you're in those gaming platforms, you use, your little pseudonyms, you use your gaming names, which is very, very far from your real name, right? And yes, that might probably help to disguise you a little bit, but again, remember, these individuals, they are very, very tricky, and they do so many different things to try to get your attention. So you have to really understand that it's okay to play the games, right? But you have to ensure that who you're interacting with, know who you're interacting with. It could be somebody who has ulterior motives, and we don't really want to get into that at all, right? So yes, definitely, it's something that we have to be aware of.
Thanks for adding that, Daren. And it's important too for our teachers who are present that they know that these platforms has that ability to chat, because my nephews, they were teaching me about roadblocks. I didn't even know about it. And, I was there sitting down in amazement of how easy you can communicate with others and maneuver this game. So I'm seeing Luke Levine, your hand is raised. Do you have a question?
Sure. Yes, hi, good morning to all, and thank you, Daren. Well, it's Luke Levine's mom. I just put his name as he was the one registered. Christine is the name. My question really, Daren, is that of adequate or sensible amount of time within the given week and hours of a day that would be determined as safe or acceptable for game time, and of course come off of the game and then you have the phone. It goes from one screen to the next. So that's where I'm seeking guidance. How many hours within the waking day is sort of considered acceptable for any teenager? You're going with the 18 to 35. Let's look at that.
I have the same question. Named Dhoray.
I did up a contract, so I want to hear if my
Brilliant.
contract is yeah, I did a contract, set hours for the posse, the gaming posse, because left up to them, they would stay on from waking to
Pretty
going
much.
back to bed.
Yeah.
So we're
So-
trying to negotiate what's normal or should be.
Yeah. Give me 2 years ago and I would have probably had an answer for you off the bat, right? So listen, there should be 2 hours on this and 1 hour on that. And so,
Yeah.
but with the onset of COVID, a lot of things changed,
Yes,
right? Because now we are on the screen all the time. We have to be on the screen all the time. And one of the main reasons why we would have looked at reducing screen time before was not necessarily for internet addiction, but was really to kind of deal with the physical aspects and the health aspects of an individual, so that they're not sitting in a improper posture for any exaggerated time, they're getting to rest and relax their eyes. That all went out the door, right? It all went out the door when COVID came in, and now we had to sit behind the screen, for in some cases 8 hours for the day doing online schooling, which was something that I never really agreed to. And it's, I always had different ways in which I think students could have actually engaged and interacted, right? So, of course, there are asynchronous methods of teaching as well, instead of, live online. So that being said, so we have to also bear in mind, and this is, very, very important. Kids now don't have the ability to interact socially with their peers in a face-to-face setting. The next best place for them to do that is online. And they need to be able to interact. They need to be able to express themselves. It's part of growing up, right? It's part of having that friendship and building that friendship. If not, then we're all going to be introverts sitting down in a corner just speaking to a character on a screen. So that's why I said I really can't tell you what that number is, right? Because I personally believe that you need to have some hours of gaming. And I guess that's what we're trying to get at, right? How much hours of gaming? Now, during the regular school hours, that particular time will probably be different than what I might recommend for July, August, because of course, we have a little bit of spare time on our hands. If you're not doing lessons, you could probably spend a little extra time doing some gaming. My recommendation though, is look at the consistency of it and the sequence of it. So you can say that you're allowed to play 4 hours or 5, 6 hours a game for the day, but you shouldn't be sitting down behind or in your bed for 6 hours consecutively to play it, right? You can break that up and doing other activities, give your eyes a rest, give the opportunity to actually maybe go and do some chores, right? Or play some sport, or walk around in the house, right? I think each household would have different requirements. Some kids have responsibilities that they absolutely must do. They must be able to pick up because an adult might not necessarily be there. They have additional responsibilities. So if that's the case, work that into your schedule or into your contract, right? If it is that they are privileged enough to not have some of those responsibilities, and all they really need to do is eat, sleep, get up, and maybe say good morning, right? Then fine, they might be privileged enough to have a little bit more gaming time. But I am a firm believer that we should have a cutoff in terms of the time. So I know a lot of the kids might disagree here, but this is one thing that I would like you to actually try and do. You see, the gaming into the wee hours of the night is all well and good, but it really affects your circadian rhythms. It affects your ability to sleep and rest. And that can have serious repercussions going forward. You might not experience it for a year, 2 years, but 3 years down the road, you might realize, well, I no longer played Fortnite, but for some reason, I lie down in my bed and I cannot sleep. I just cannot sleep until 3 o'clock in the morning. And now this is when you are going into Form 4, Form 5, and you need to get rest because you need to have a fresh mind the next day to do exams. So the body becomes, it's a bit habitual, and the body becomes programmed into going to sleep in this hour in the morning because this is what I've been accustomed doing, right? So part of that contract could probably be, let's cut off certain things at a particular time, right? Let's not continue doing this type of activity at that particular time. If you believe as a parent that, hey, 1 or 2 hours, 3 hours is enough, I would recommend you put that into your contract. But I can't really say or give you a particular time because of that information, right? Everyone's internal responsibilities might be a bit different. You might actually be, so for example, if you sign up to do an online program or an online course, that should not be part of your online time, that's written within the contract, right? So if you have to do lessons and lessons is 2 hours for the day, you should still have another 2 hours to play games, but then now that's 4 hours behind the screen, and a parent might look like you only behind the screen, right? So you really have to kind of work with them. I really believe that we have to utilize the platforms that are available for socialization. I really hope that we can go back to some level of normalcy come September or even January, where we can go back to that level of interaction. We might be able to make things a little bit easier on everyone. But in that interim, we need to just bear in mind that we do have to use that platform and these areas as a mechanism to socialize. It really does help and build the person and build the child. But to say that we have 2 hours of this or 3 hours of that, I would leave that up to the parent.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Daren. I have a question. So what would be the ideal time to go to bed for gaming?
Right. So interestingly enough, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, they have a social media and cybercrime arm or unit, right? And I've done work with them, ever since inception, since 2010. And the data they have been able to share with me was that the younger generation, younger kids, maybe kids within your age group, they tend to get in trouble. So this would have been reports that would have actually been made to the TDPS. So that means it would have reached a severe level for a report to actually be made, right? Most of those reports would have that during the hours of 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. is when trouble happens, right? That's when people end up sharing inappropriate pictures, someone end up cyber stalking them, cyberbullying takes place during that time. So that's generally the bad time, right? Now I'm just putting that to your thought process, because it means that during 2 to 4 a.m. there is a lot of activity that is still happening on the internet, okay? And I mean, when we looked at the chat, we did see that some of you are online and interacting at that time, so it corroborates the data. I would say use that information in terms of what time to go to bed based on what time you think you should wake up. So if you have responsibilities, if you have lessons, if you have chores that you need to get done for a certain time, right, you should try and work out a 6 to 8. I would want to lean towards an 8-hour time period of sleep. And by sleep, I don't mean lying down on your bed. I mean closing your eyes and actually sleeping. Sleeping isn't lying on your bed with your eyes open on your phone, and that's not sleeping, okay? So sleeping is actually, actually being asleep. You want to try and get, an 8-hour time period on a regular basis. It really helps, to rejuvenate and to keep your brain active, especially for those kids who are going into, older forms, form 4, form 5, and so on. So if you know that you have to get up 6 o'clock in the morning, right, you should be cut off by 10 o'clock, right? You shouldn't be, doing things too much later. And by cut off, I mean you should actually have stopped gaming a little bit before and start to wind down a little bit, so that by the time you get into bed, turn the lights off, you can fall asleep quickly. That is not something that's going to happen immediately for you if you're accustomed, sitting in your bed with the phone, lights off in the room, but lights on the device. Again, your brain has been pre-programmed to say, well, okay, well, it's not really sleep time, it's time to interact. Okay, so it does take a little while for you to get back to that particular, mode of, being able to sleep quite easily.
Thank you very, very much, Daren, for accommodating all of these questions. I know that we are well over time. Do we have time to do one more questions for Marcel, who had a hand raised?
Yeah, let's answer Marcel's question.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm the guidance officer of Signal Hill Secondary School. I have this this concern for a student that I am aware of, who seems to be depressed, not participating as what would have happened face to face.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing about it is, in conversation, I recognize that one of the things disclosed was a friendship coming out of with someone in another country.
Mm-hmm.
And when I in the conversation, I got very, very concerned because I was picking up that there might be some kind of what you were talking in terms of like, I'm not sure what is the word, if it's grooming,
Yeah.
taking place.
Right.
But definitely, and I'm wondering, how do you deal with a situation like that?
Right. So I mean, that's a very good question. It's something that, we could probably take offline because, there would be quite a few different
Yes,
angles
yes,
to approach.
yes,
Um,
yes,
but just for the purpose of this room, who would have heard, and I think it's good that it was mentioned. Um, Essentially, we do have individuals pretending to be other individuals and befriending younger ones during the COVID period. This whole concept of online or cyber stalking or online grooming, as you put it, has become quite prevalent, and it has actually been happening more so with girls, but it has also been happening with boys as well. Um, Humans are social beings. We need to interact, and we look for interaction. We look for good compliments, right? We look for being wanted, and we look out for that level of friendship when we go to school to hug a friend and say, hey, what's going on? With that not being there, kids would, and adults as well, would try to seek that type of interaction. And sometimes it might be embarrassing to try and do so with your friends on the internet because it just doesn't seem right. And you might end up showcasing different feelings on the internet. And as I mentioned, some of these online groomers, these human traffickers, they prey on that. They prey on the vulnerable. So I mean, I'm not saying that we are at that particular case or this situation, but yes, we have to be aware that it could very well be someone pretending to be someone else. And it could cause that person to become very reclusive and change from their regular mode of operating. And this I could probably share with you when we have our session on human trafficking and social media, and maybe have individuals attend that, because we would speak about a lot of information pertaining to that topic, and how folks actually befriend individuals and gain their trust and so on. So it's
yes,
something that I think we could have a particular conversation about offline. I would have shared my email address, or you can contact Annalisa, to follow up as well, and and see how.
yes. Thanks. I have your email address. Thank you very much.
Great.
Yes, and I like the idea about the human trafficking online session as well as a possibility.
Gotcha. So Annalisa, before we close, I just want to just want to mention one thing. So I really have to commend the participants this morning. I think you really did a fantastic job. But I want to just mention one thing. It's not a topic that we were scheduled to speak about today, and that is cyberbullying, right? Sometimes we may say something, particularly like what's going on, ever so often in the chat, and we may say something that might seem like a joke, right? But it can actually hurt someone much more than that joke that you think it might be, right? And when we take that action, online, and it's imprinted on a social media platform and someone screenshots it or records it, we can't really retract it, right? So be very mindful as to what you say to a person on the internet. Always pretend as if you're speaking to them face to face, especially if it's someone that you don't know, right? You guys may not necessarily know all of these folks that you're speaking to here, and you really don't want to say something inappropriate to them, because you never know. Look at, for example, we do have parents sitting in under the name of their kid. You genuinely don't know who you're speaking to, right? So you have to be extremely, extremely aware as to what it is that you're doing on the internet. And cyberbullying is a very important thing. So thank you very much. And again, fantastic to the audience. I think you all were really well. I like the questions. Hand over to you now, Annalisa.
Thank you, Daren. I really join you in that commendation. I really would like to say thank you to our audience for your active engagement and participation. And as we close, I would like to share a special thank you to Mr. Daren Dhoray for taking his time from his busy schedule as well as facilitating this session. It's always a pleasure and an interest. We have been getting a lot of feedback for this topic in particular, not only from students, but from adults. And we hope that in the near future, we can have this internet addiction geared towards for adults who have been asking for it. So I encourage you to also look out for this information. I would like to extend my thanks to all our participants who are attending from different schools in different countries, especially within our region, Grenada, St. Lucia, Dominica, Trinidad and Tobago, and all of the teachers who have encouraged their students to participate, as well as parents. And I would also like to extend a thank you to the congregation of the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother, who have been sponsoring all of our anti-human trafficking programs and ensuring that these educational webinars are available for especially the schools we have been working with and serving in these 3 islands. To the staff, Amy Jo, who's assisting, thank you for your tremendous work. And please look out for our upcoming programs. There are a cyber safety, like Daren shared. There's a cyber safety program that will take place on August the 18th. And the Institute has also been doing a series of online grooming workshops with Dr. Karen Moore. And her next session will take place together with the counter-trafficking unit on July 26th. It will be live streamed online. So do feel free to share and connect with us. For those who have asked questions, we will try our best to answer it and respond to you via email. So thank you, and bye everyone. Take care.
Bye. All right, Annalisa, we'll be in touch. Take care.
Right. So this is another topic, internet addiction, and it is geared towards teenagers today. My name is Annalisa Ramsahai, and I am the Regional Program Coordinator for the Franciscan Institute for Personal and Family Development. It is a ministry of the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother. Without further ado, I would now introduce to you our presenter for today, Mr. Daren Dhoray of CyberSafeTT. And he have a lot in store for us on this very popular topic at this time, internet addiction. Mr. Daren Dhoray is a digital anthropologist who has been studying, researching, and presenting on topics related to internet addiction, cyberbullying, and social media etiquette. Mr. Dhoray also holds the post of webmaster at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine campus. In 2020, he became a member of the Facebook community Contents Guidelines Committee for the Caribbean, where he will contribute towards the filtering of inappropriate content to minors on that platform. Mr. Dhoray has presented voluntarily to over 25,000 students, parents, and teachers, collectively from countries such as Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Brazil, Germany, Italy, Portugal, and Spain. So I now hand you over to Mr. Daren Dhoray. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Annalisa. Good morning, everyone. I'm not too sure if we need to add some new countries to that list, because I know we have, a full room this morning. I'm seeing we have 101 participants joined in, and I think that you're in for a treat this morning. We're going to speak about internet addiction. I'm sure many of you here would have preferred to still be in your bed wrapped up in their covers, but I do thank you very much for giving me That priority this morning, given CyberSafeTT the opportunity to speak to you a little bit about how we can manage ourselves, over the next couple months, with respect to being online and with our devices and so on. We do have quite a few bits of information, so I'm not going to delay any further. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and you can type out any questions that you might have in the chat, and we will answer them after the session. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Right. So we should all be seeing my first screen here, Internet Addiction, by me, Daren, digital anthropologist of the CyberSafeTT Foundation. CyberSafeTT has been in existence since 2010, by the way. So we've actually been doing a lot of conversations to folks like yourself on internet addiction, cyberbullying, social media etiquette, and quite a few other topics as well. Today, however, we are focusing on internet addiction. Now, we may have heard the term, but I don't think that folks in general understand really and truly what addiction is and why it's something that we need to be concerned about. So I sought to look at some definitions that hopefully will help us understand why this is something that we need to be concerned about. So an addiction is when an action or desire becomes a hindrance or something that takes precedence over the most important aspects of one's life. And that's the part that I want you to focus on, right? If you're doing something that's taking precedence or becoming an obstacle for you actually doing, the important aspects of your life, which is, having just good relationships, being able to do, your work, schoolwork, being able to engage in sporting activities, looking after your health, then if those activities or actions that you're doing really affects those things, then it can be classified as an addiction because it's something that you have no control over. So let's put it in a little bit of perspective. And this is a question that you're going to ask yourself. So these are questions that you're going to ask yourself. Is there any activity? And as you can see here, by activity, I mean maybe browsing social media, gaming on YouTube, Netflix, the like. Is there any activity that you do which might cause you to pay less attention to folks around you, other people within the household, mom, dad, even a brother or sister, reduces your sleep or reduces the amount of time that you should really get to rest, makes you uninterested in activities that you should be doing, such as eating or talking with others? Yes, I know some of us might find it a bore, to go and grab lunch or dinner because you might prefer to continue watching that movie or, scrolling social media, or result in, and I think this is a very important one, result in stop doing something that you've been very good at, such as a hobby or sport. So is there any activities, that might have prevented you from, maybe stop playing a musical instrument or, playing a sport, something that you might have been really, really good at? And if that is the case, then there is a high possibility, that you may be showing signs of internet addiction. So what exactly is internet addiction? And this is a definition that I came up with. You will find quite a lot more different types of definitions, but I'm hoping that this one resonates with you. So internet addiction can be defined as excessive and uncontrollable consumption of internet-related content, resulting in a deterioration of a person's mental, physical, and social well-being. Yes, so it's a bit heavy, but basically what we are saying here is if you have excessive consumption of social media, gaming, shopping, online trading, news, so much so that it causes you to become less of a more positive person, it affects your physical health, it affects your mental and social well-being. It really changes you as a person from maybe what you were before you were so glued to the device. Then, you may be looking at suffering from internet addiction. And we are also going to speak about the topic, of pornography today as well, because that is something that we have to be mindful of. We use unfiltered internet here in Trinidad and Tobago. So every internet connection that you have, does give you access to the good stuff and the bad stuff. And some of us may come across that and not necessarily know how to deal with it. So there are different types of internet addiction, and I want you to pay attention to, all of these, because we may not necessarily realize that we're actually addicted to the internet, right? And I think that if we don't realize it at an early stage, then when you get older, it's going to become something that's a bit more difficult or even more challenging for you to overcome. So let's have a look at, these different types of internet addictions, these different scenarios that maybe you yourself can put, yourself in, and determine whether or not you have any one of these. So we're going to speak on these 6 items here, as you're seeing on the screen. So the first one we're going to look at is net compulsions, or some sort of compulsive addictive disorder. And this really relates to online gambling, trading stocks, trading foreign exchange, online auctions, like visiting websites like eBay, or even compulsive online shopping. I know many of you might not have your own credit cards, so this might not necessarily be that entirely applicable. But the content that I'm sharing here, I want to open your eyes as well. There may be someone in your household, an older sister or brother, mom or dad even, who might be suffering from some of these things, and with your knowledge and information, you might be able to assist them. Now, in the next few slides, you would notice that I have listed out what are the most affected age groups, and what are some of the effects of being under this type of internet addiction. So you can pay attention to that. I may not necessarily read it out in its entirety, but you can look at it and get a sense as to whether or not you fall into those categories as well. So compulsive online shopping, we have individuals who might be buying things on the internet over and over and over, and they fall susceptible to a lot of financial debt, and it's going to be something that's going to have much worse consequences in the long run if they can't pay those debts. So another one of the categories of internet addiction would be online relationship addiction. And this is really when you're obsessed with finding and maintaining a relationship online. So within the last couple of years, our social interaction, really has stuck to that screen, right? We weren't able to go to school. We weren't able to go to the mall. We weren't able to go and meet our friends anywhere. And, we would have tried to make that relationship work, on the internet or through our devices. And what we would find is that because you now have 24/7 access to someone, or literally, you could message them at any point in time. 2 o'clock in the morning, you could send a message, just saying, "Hey, how are you? Would you like to chat?" And that's that can become a little bit obsessive, and it can have negative that you have, face-to-face conversations with, or you can't have face-to-face conversations with, and you're only dealing with, those individuals online. That's also another reason, another sign of, online relationship addiction. And not getting the kind of feedback and response that you would expect can put you in a little bit of, depression. You may feel a little bit of anxiety as well, as you lack this social interaction. So that's online relationship addiction. Now, as we go a little further into these different categories, I think that you might resonate a little bit more with them as we go along, because the first few might be more related to maybe adults and so on. So we have compulsive information seeking and sharing. Now, I'm sure every one of us here have, that friend or uncle or aunt or mom or dad who will share every bit of information, that they can find. They send an article, send an image, and say, "Look, read this, you see what they're saying about this." And you know what? COVID has really exacerbated that. I'm sure many of us might be suffering from information overload as it pertains to, getting too much information about news on, COVID virus. And that's a really good example on this. I think that this is really important and practical to some of the adults that might be sitting in on the conversation today, because we tend to look for information and look for news, about a particular topic. And often not, and this is an important point for the folks listening on, often not, we tend to focus on the negative aspects of those news and not necessarily the positive aspects of the news. So even though, we are seeking information about COVID, we're not really looking for the good information or the good news related to COVID, but instead, we're only trying to find all of the bad things and share that and create this sense of fear and anxiety. And you have that happening, not just with the topic of COVID, but with so many different things. And you will have someone that might be sitting behind their phone and just searching Google, looking at news and just sharing it across the board. So it's something that can get the better of them. It can really put a spoke in their judgment. They may be thinking not logically and just based on all of those fearful articles that they're reading. And the biggest point on this topic is that might be unable to decipher between real and fake news. Now, fake news is a very, very important topic, when we speak about browsing the internet and getting information and understanding information. There are so many different avenues of content that you have to be able to decipher from the real and fake news. You really find that a lot of people just read the headline and the title and they don't read the content of the article. And most of those headlines and titles are very sensationalism. So I urge you, if you're seeing an article, you're seeing a title, read past the title because the article itself might actually be quite different. So that's another, form of internet addiction where you're seeking this information over and over again. Now we're going to talk about a somewhat sensitive topic now, and that is of pornography addiction. Because it's something that affects teenagers all the way into the age of adults. And it starts off at an early age. And this, it's unfortunate because we have easy access to this type of information online, often at no cost or charge. So you could just search for certain keywords and you'll find websites that provide this information freely. And then you will end up with individuals who, constantly browsing these adult websites, and then they may take it to a different level where they may start making inappropriate comments, to maybe their friends of the opposite sex or people that they just absolutely don't know. And that could be a form of cyber stalking. So we have to really be, quite aware as to the content that we are looking at, and understand that that's an industry that's really geared towards making money and looking for you to, browse as much content as possible. So it's a whole different topic as it pertains to a type of addiction, and it really creates a distorted sense of reality. I think as you get older, we can speak about more into this particular topic, but I definitely needed to share this with you today because even at a very young age, we can start looking at, this type of content and, not realize that it is something that could affect you later on in life. Now we're going to speak about something that I'm sure many of us here might be a bit touchy over, right? And it's called gaming addiction. It's a real thing. And this really affects everyone. The most affected age groups really stopped at 18 to 35, but I know that there are some adults, that, might be affected by gaming addiction as well. But the data that I have access to really indicates that it's really from the ages of 13, under 13 into the ages of 35 that really have a gaming addiction problem. And of course, I don't need to define what the gaming addiction is, right? That uncontrollable urge to continue playing games into the wee hours of the morning that actually disrupts your daily routine. You sometimes get angry if you lose internet connectivity and you can't play that game, and you're anxious as to, when the next season is going to be released and so on and so forth. And to a certain extent, this can be a healthy addiction. However, if you let it take you over and it, generates some of these, unfortunate effects such as insomnia, vision problems, you find that, things are not looking as clean or clear as it was because, you're straining your eyes. Then there's weight gain or loss. And then we have that unfortunate situation, which a lot of youths suffering from now, which will be back and neck strain, because we are not sitting with proper posture when we're playing these games most of the times. And of course, we're losing social interaction. This even happens when we were at school and we had that ability to interact with one another. For those of us who were able to take our phones into school, you might have been playing games during that recess or lunch period as well. So gaming addiction is something that's, I think, is very prevalent in Trinidad and Tobago. It's a form of internet addiction, and it's something that we have to be very mindful of. Now, here is one that I'm sure many of you, if you don't want to admit it on your own, you probably know somebody who might be suffering from this type of internet addiction, and it's called binge watching, right? And for those of us who are unaware of the term binge watching, it's there's that need to continue looking at some online series, show on Netflix or YouTube or any sort of online streaming content media. You're really drawn into watching a series from beginning till end, and every waking moment that you have, you prefer to look at the series, look at the show, until you finish the entire series. And for some of these series, it can be quite long. There are some series that would have lasted up to 10 years, and we have individuals trying to look out at the entire series in the July-August vacation. And that would really, turn things upside down for you, because you're really going to not be able to do anything else if you feel that you absolutely need to look out that entire season during this July-August vacation. And what will happen is that you will avoid that, social interaction. You're going to have problems with sleep. You're not going to get any sort of physical activity. So it's not that, and I want to make this clear at this point in time, it's not that I'm saying, hey, don't go and watch those shows. But what I'm saying is that be aware as to whether or not in engaging in those activities, whether it is gaming or looking at those series, that you are not affected from a physical or a mental state, right? You don't snap at someone when they ask you to do something because you were watching that series or playing that game. That's a telltale sign or a symptom of internet addiction. And we're actually going into discussing those right now in terms of what are some of the symptoms of internet addiction. So we would have mentioned all the different, I guess, channels of content that would cause you to be addicted to the internet, right? So we spoke about game addiction and binge watching and, sharing of too much news or trying to get too much content online, and pornography addiction as well. And you might be thinking to us, well, yeah, I play some games, I watch some shows, I browse the internet, I do the social media thing. I don't think I'm addicted to the internet. And that's generally the response that you get from most people, right? They say, I have control over it. So here's what. I'm not doubting that, but just in the event that you need to double check, let's read through what some of these symptoms of internet addiction might be. So I'm going to actually read through the slides and discuss it one by one. So you're always going to think about that last time when you're online and anticipate the next time you're going to be online. So for whatever reason, if you are offline, you're not connected, you don't have the device with you, the only thing that's on your mind is when next you're going to get connected to the internet, or when next you're going to get to play that game, right? That could be a symptom that you're addicted to the game or that series or show or that activity. Remember, we spoke about activities that really take over your daily functions. And I'm joking here, but eating is one of those daily functions that we tend to, put aside because we prefer, to be in the game or watching the show. Now you need to use the internet with increasing amounts of time in order to achieve satisfaction. And that's when we tend to, get a little bit numb on the joys that the internet used to bring to us in a very short time. But, we have to use it for an extremely long time to gain now a little bit or a little ounce of satisfaction. You may have tried to, but were unsuccessful in, cutting back on, your internet usage. You may have thought on yourself to, I'm going to sign off for a little bit. I'm going to, not, go online, but it never really worked out. And then you end up staying online much longer than originally intended. I'm sure if I ask you all to write out in the chat, what time did you all go to sleep last night? Just put that in the chat and we'll have a look at it after, and then you had to get up at 10 o'clock this morning. And be honest, right? I mean, we're not here to point fingers, but be honest to yourself. So go ahead and put in the chat what time you went to sleep last night, and let's see if you're getting, that prescribed 8 hours of sleep, and if that's happening on a regular basis. So some more symptoms of internet addiction. You might be restless, moody, depressed, or even irritable when, you are trying to cut down, or if internet stops working. So has that ever happened? Have you ever lost internet at home and you just felt like, what am I going to do now? There's absolutely nothing in my life that I need to do because we have no internet. I don't know if that might sound so similar, but that's a sign that, you are addicted to that activity. You may have jeopardized, risk losing a relationship, or even falling back in your studies based on, your ability to get away from the internet. And that's something that's really important to be aware of, particularly at your age, in terms of, the internet addiction activities taking over from your schooling activities. And we'll speak about that in a little bit. And then we also have this option about lying to family members, that might be mom or dad, about how much time you actually are on the internet, or even what you've been doing on the internet. I think the minute you realize that you start to have to tell lies to cover your tracks about internet related activities, I think that's a telltale sign that you are addicted to the internet and to the device and or that content that it's providing. And that's a point in which you're going to sit back and say, hey, I really shouldn't have to be lying about, my use of the internet or my involvement in activities online. Something is probably up, yeah? And then lastly, the use of the internet as a way of escaping from problems. You may be feeling sad, you may be feeling depressed, you may receive a bad report, something to that effect. And often you might jump into the internet and look to share your deepest thoughts and feelings. And this is something that I think that you have to be particularly mindful of, because we're going to speak about how human trafficking and internet addiction can play a role. So just remember this particular point when we get to those slides. So using the internet as a way of escaping from problems or feelings of guilt and anxiety. So those are some of the symptoms of internet, but based on those symptoms, they can actually have long-term effects. And, I'm sure you would have seen, examples of this before, but long-term effects of internet addiction would include things such as insomnia, the inability to sleep properly, vision problems, weight gain and loss. We would have mentioned some of these before. And then in the middle there, I have academic decline. Now, particularly for the former group of students and students at any form, you have to be very aware of how internet usage can influence, your studies. Now, I know it's extremely difficult now for that to be managed, because the same device that we're using to study is the same device that we, might use to play or have that game installed on. And it's really easy for us to open up another tab and, start browsing the internet. And we become swamped and engrossed in that content that we forget that we were supposed to be doing work. So that's an effect that could have far-reaching repercussions. Now, I took the time to actually come up with some scenarios that I want to share with you, right? And I call them internet addiction and the domino effect, because you might believe that internet addiction affects you alone, but it actually affects you and folks around you, the ones that you might be having a relationship with, work-wise, personal-wise, your members of family. And I think this is where we need to understand that internet addiction really can have long-term repercussions, negative repercussions, negative effects. And if we were to bring some scenarios to light, I think it might make you a little bit more understanding as to why this is something that we have to speak about. So internet addiction and the domino effect. Now, dominoes, I know we have some young ones in the audience. You may not necessarily know what it is, and maybe I should probably get a visual to support this, but it's those little chips that has numbers in it. It's a game that you play, and you can actually, you may have seen, videos of folks lining up dominoes and you tip one and all of them falls, right? So that's a domino effect. So let's look at this particular scenario. And I'm going to read it out for you. You're responsible for compiling and submitting a school group project. You started it on your computer, but got distracted with a notification that some friends started an online gaming session. So that's the scenario. What happened after that? You end up staying too late playing that game. You're waking up much later than you should. You end up rushing to get to school. You might have skipped breakfast. You would have kept back transportation. And this is assuming, that we are, going to school regularly. You may have made others late. So, you're affecting other individuals other than just yourself alone. Worse yet, you forget to submit the group project, right? Because you were so consumed in the game. And now the entire team and the rest of your classmates had to end up paying the penalty. So because you were swamped with playing that game, you really forgot to do your academic work, your school work, because that's what happens when you're addicted, right? You forget about real world activities, you forget about your responsibilities. And in this scenario, not only you were affected, but you would have kept back other folks who may have been, on that bus to go to school. You would have made others late possibly. And worse yet, I think the worst part of this is that not just you alone would have received low marks for that submission, but the entire team, because you had that responsibility. So that's one example, one scenario. Here's another one. So picture that you're an aspiring first-year music student on scholarship at a foreign university, and you must maintain a high GPA as well as compete in various musical concerts as a criteria to keep that scholarship. Yeah. Now, you are a student in a foreign university. There is no mom and dad around, right? So you are independent and you're alone at this foreign university. And that is a reality for many of us, maybe in the near or not so near future. So there's no one keeping tabs on your academic process. Now you came into the university knowing that you might have a little Netflix binging addiction, probably, but this is something that you used to do at home. However, at home, you would have had mom, or dad say, listen, stop doing that and go and do your studies. Take off Netflix and go and do your work. But now you are independent and you have to make those decisions on your own. So you're experiencing a whole new world of online content because you're in, let's say USA or Canada, and you're going to get shows that you never used to even get in Trinidad and Tobago. You're unable, therefore, to probably manage your studies because you have all of this new content and your internet addiction, the binge, is taking precedence over your desire to learn. What happens? Your GPA drops, you lose your scholarship. And these universities abroad, they are, they are not very forgiving when it comes to things like this. I have one more scenario. So you're working for a software development firm as a remote employee. So you would have realized we went from, just starting school to being in university, now to being an employee. So you're working for a software development firm as a remote employee. It means that, you're working from home with multiple projects to manage and to complete in a specific time frame. So now you are aware that you have an addiction to online gaming and also to watching pornography on the internet. You know that that's something that you have to deal with. However, you're working at home alone. You spend the entire day playing games, not doing anything, trying to satisfy that addiction, but you wake up very, very late at night to complete the work that, that remote employer has given you to do. So it's end of the first quarter, all your projects are completed, but you receive a letter stating that you got fired. Why? You see, the company would have found out that you might have had unsanctioned software on the laptop that they gave you to do your work on, and that you might have a lot of adult content that was viewed on the company laptop. And there's like, listen, that's a no for us. We don't deal with that. You've breached our policy. And even though you've completed our projects and you're a really smart person, your addiction got the better of you. We could find someone else to work. So those are 3 scenarios. And these are actual real life examples of individuals that I have been interacting with over the years who have been, I guess, victims of their own internet addiction. And you have to be aware that because it's an addiction, you're really sometimes not aware that it gets in the way of real life activities, right? So that's why it's so important for us to start to think of it from that perspective, that we have to really put things in, in check when it comes to internet addiction. So we mentioned earlier that we're going to try and bridge the gap between human trafficking and internet addiction. Now, there is a myth that human trafficking says that it involves the movement of a person from one place to another. So when we think about human trafficking, we're thinking about, kidnapping someone and moving them from one country into another. Whilst that is and has been a traditional form of human trafficking, in reality, we can actually be trafficked right in our home and never actually leave our household. And over the last few years, this has become a bit more prevalent, where through the use of internet related technologies, social media, and so on, individuals can be actually trafficked in their own home. And by trafficked, I mean they are meant to conduct certain activities on the internet, whether it is, play games or even share inappropriate pictures with themselves, because someone else has some information on them and they say, listen, if you don't do this for us, we're going to share your information throughout the internet and so on. So in reality, you can actually be, or persons can actually be trafficked right in their own home. Now, we would have human traffickers using really, really smart online grooming tactics in gaming platforms, right? So if you are a gamer and you're addicted to the internet, what you will find happening is that while you're playing these games, you let your guard down, not in the game, but your personal guard down. So you may befriend someone that you have absolutely no knowledge of, right? And that person could possibly be a pedophile. It could be an online trafficker who would use the gaming platform to lure you in. And this has happened. This has happened in many occasions where kids are contacted by what should have been a younger person, but it's really an adult in disguise. And sometimes they may offer them free upgrades to their gaming package, free e-currency, they may buy V-Bucks for them, and parents may not necessarily even know. And this would feed your need to play the game. This would fuel your internet addiction, and you continue in that vibes. Now, of course, if they're giving you something, at some point they will want something in return. So it's something to be very mindful of. The same way in which, you would have heard that old adage, don't accept candy from strangers, it really applies in the virtual world as well. So social media can actually also be used to control victims. And we would have mentioned before, sometimes we may revert to social media to express our deepest desires. We might be sad, we might be depressed, and we might go onto the internet and express these things because, we feel that we might not be able to speak to mom and dad about it, right? Or bigger brother or sister, even a friend. But we have that sense of trust in the internet because you know what? We've been on the internet and sharing all of our business on the internet, that we think that it's the place that we could share, whether we're sad or depressed. Now, the good thing about that is you might probably get some help. You might probably, one of your friends might actually reach out to you and say, hey, what's going on? Why are you so sad? But then on the other side, we have to remember that because the internet is quite open, any and anyone can actually see what's going on. So you could end up being befriended by, again, a human trafficker who might tell you all the right things. They might, you might hear exactly what you want to hear. You might start to feel better. So much so to the point where you might start to do certain things that they may be asking you to. Some of it might be sharing inappropriate pictures, or playing games for an unnecessary long time because you're really good at the game, and people can actually make money based on how that plays out. So you have to be, really aware as to who you befriend and who you communicate with, because at the end of the day, you don't want to share too much information. You don't want to share too much of your information with a stranger because they can actually use reverse psychology to, get back at you and almost control you while you're on the internet. So again, you see, internet addiction has so much far-reaching repercussions that I can only, touch on some of those topics today, but open your mind into understanding why we need to be so aware of what we do when we're on the internet and not let it get the better of us. So we really need to keep an eye on internet addiction. We need to identify, we need to interrupt, and possibly we may need to have an intervention. So identification, we need to identify first to begin with that, yes, you know what, I might probably have an internet addiction. And hopefully the slides that we would have shared before would have led towards you identifying whether or not you or someone you know may be suffering from internet addiction, or you're probably heading down that path. And once you've identified it, then we need to interrupt that possible activity. We need to interrupt it. We need to say, I'm going to actually do something that will stop me from, becoming addicted to the internet. I'm going to bear in mind as to what was said. I'm going to log off sometimes. I'm going to have a little digital detox, and that's the last slide. And at some point in time, you yourself might not be able to deal with it, and therefore you need an intervention. That's where you might need an adult to come in and say, hey, I'm going to put some guidelines for you. We're going to turn off internet at this point. We're going to deal with that. We're going to go outside and play. In the United States and in the UK, there are actual internet addiction centers, just in the same way in which you have a medical center to go and get checked up for a cold or fever or any other kind of health problems. There are internet addiction centers where you check yourself into to deal with internet addiction. That goes to show how serious of a thing it is. And that's not a form of intervention. So we need to keep an eye on internet addiction. We need to identify, interrupt, and hopefully we don't need to have an intervention, but we can deal with it on our own. So I want to leave you with this last slide as to how you can deal with it on your own, and that would be having a digital detox. And it's something that I do regularly. And it's some really easy pointers if you're willing to do it, right? So, simple things, turn off notifications on your phone. The little red dot, sometimes you see it and you have to know what it's about. So yeah, turn off notifications. That generally helps. It helps you from continually wanting to look at your phone. A simple thing, not using your phone while eating or, while interacting with others. Just try and stay away from the screen for a little bit. Leaving your devices out of the bedroom. I know some adults might probably, need to do that as well. And then we might say, well, listen, we need to have the phone in case we get an emergency call. Okay, fine, no problem. If it's an emergency and someone calls, you don't need to have that phone at an arm's length. You could probably have it, in the chest of drawer away from the bed. So you have to actually get up off the bed to answer it. You should establish a schedule of internet free time. So, let's just say between 3 and 4, 4 and 5, 5 and 6 every day. That's just 1 hour, no internet. We're going to walk the dog. We're going to walk outside. We're going to go in the garden, do something different. We're going to play cricket, football, something that will help us, get away from the screen. And this is an interesting one. Change the screen to grayscale. It's something I read recently and I was like, that's quite interesting. If I'm not stimulated by those colors on my phone, I probably won't want to look at it. So it's something to try. I've personally never tried it, but it's something that I'll look into. Reduce the number of apps on your phone. Often we just keep downloading apps. And this is actually tied into the first one. We may have downloaded an app and forgot that we downloaded it, but these apps keep sending us those notifications, right? So it's something that, we'll have to bear in mind. You don't necessarily want to receive unnecessary notifications, yeah? When occupied otherwise, so let's just say you're doing something that really does not involve you to have use of your device or phone, just keep it out of sight. Again, these notifications really have a hold on you. You might see your phone light up, but you're busy doing something, and then you leave what you're doing to go and check your phone. Possibly even just turn the phone upside down so you don't see the screen. Right? Try and rediscover some activities that may not necessarily require you to have internet connectivity. And if you get the opportunity, and I know we're all looking forward to the next Orlando Hill, anywhere else, that you can just enjoy the scenery, sit and relax for a bit, and not necessarily be connected to the internet. So that brings us to the end of the conversation today. I know we discussed quite a lot of information, and I ended on this side of digital detox. I'll leave it up for a little bit, but I think we can look at entertaining some question and answers at this point.
Thank you, Daren. I really join you in that commendation. I really would like to say thank you to our audience for your active engagement and participation. And as we close, I would like to share a special thank you to Mr. Daren Dhoray for taking his time from his busy schedule, as well as facilitating this session. It's always a pleasure and an interest. We have been getting a lot of feedback for this topic in particular, not only from students, but from adults. And we hope that in the near future, we can have this internet addiction geared towards for adults who have been asking for it. So I encourage you to also look out for this information. I would like to extend my thanks to all our participants who are attending from different schools in different countries, especially within our region, St. Grenada, St. Lucia, Dominica, Trinidad and Tobago, and all of the teachers who have encouraged their students to participate, as well as parents. And I would also like to extend a thank you to the congregation of the Sisters of the Sorrowful Mother, who have been sponsoring all of our anti-human trafficking programs and ensuring that these educational webinars are available for especially the schools we have been working with and serving in these 3 islands. To the staff, Amy Jo, who's assisting, thank you for your tremendous work. And please look out for our upcoming programs. There are a cyber safety, like Daren shared, there's a cyber safety program that will take place on August the 18th. And the Institute has also been doing a series of online grooming workshops with Dr. Karen Moore, and her next session will take place together with the counter-trafficking unit on July 26th. It will be live streamed online. So do feel free to share and connect with us. For those who have asked questions, we will try our best to answer it and respond to you via email. So thank you, and bye everyone. Take care.
Bye.